All right, what is going on, everyone? We have got the 5070 Ti versus the 5080 Overclock edition. So we're going to see what it looks like with both of these cards kind of head to head on stock and overclock settings. If you see average in here, just ignore it. I just realized that as I was going through these tests and various menus, it was really screwing up the average. So I took it out at some point, but just ignore it if you see it. But yeah, for the most part, I wanted to focus on about 6 games, I believe, is what I have here, in various different settings, including path tracing, ray tracing, upscaling, not upscaled, stuff like that. Just kind of how you would play these particular games, and be a little bit different than what you typically see, where it's just a video with no commentary and nobody's telling you what's going on. So I kind of want to be a little bit different with this. So at the very end of me talking with my head here, I'll put this entire video for you guys to watch and make your own determination. But right here, we are in Assassin's Creed Mirage. And I selected this one because this was kind of the most underperforming, and there's big differences between games that I noticed here. So, really, in this one, you can kind of see that the 5070 Ti and the 5080 are within margin of error. I mean, they're very close. This is like extremely identical. But when you did overclock the 5080, you got a little bit of a breakout here where you didn't get that same breakout over here on the 5070 Ti. So this is just kind of a game that performed this way. The 5070 and Ti and the 5080 just were basically neck and neck until you overclocked the 5080. So I don't know what's going on there, but there's just something to kind of keep in mind. There's no telling what's going on, but yeah, I used all these were built with a built-in benchmark just to keep things as scientifically I guess, identical as possible. So, that's what you're looking at here is just the built-in benchmarks, but not a lot of difference in any of these settings on this title. They really all like performed pretty well. I mean, you've got 103 versus 104. So, I wanted to include this one just because this was something that I noticed is like, you know, other games had a lot more swing in them, but this one just did not at all. So, we're going to keep going through this though. Let's just run through it. All right, so Cyberpunk, this is on performance with RT Overdrive, which is like the world's hardest setting to run for any card. I call it the GPU microwaver because it is still a very, very difficult setting to run. And as you can see here, you've got a little bit of a delta when it comes to the overclocks. Not a huge amount, but remember, the faster you go, the harder it is to go even faster. So as I go through here, though, you can kind of see these numbers jump up a little bit more. So 56 and 61 versus 48 and 52. So going from 48 to 52 is easier than going from 56 to 61. And that's kind of what you got to remember, especially on these settings where you're not seeing a huge amount of actual FPS difference. You got to remember that it is harder to go faster. It requires more energy, more power to go faster. Think about it like a race car. It's kind of the same thing. Going from 300 horsepower to 400 horsepower, you're going to feel that. But going from 900 horsepower to 1,000 horsepower, you probably won't feel the difference in that because it's harder and harder to go faster and faster. So, yeah, just a little analogy there. Maybe a bad one, I don't know. But yeah, 54 to 58 and then 65 to 70. That's a pretty big difference there. So as we go through it, though, I just wanted to keep in mind, that all of these are set up to give a kind of context of this is for path tracing. And I ran it at performance because if I ran it at anything under performance, you would basically see no change. Even though there would be change, it wouldn't be enough to even register. So I wanted to have some movement in these. So this is native, fully maxed out settings on Dying Light 2. And this gave a little bit of an improvement here. I mean, you're going from 45 to 48 on your overclock on the 5070 Ti, but the 55 to 61 on the 5080. Again, it's one of those things where it is harder to go faster. So you're looking like probably not a playable setting here versus something that is a little bit more playable, especially if you introduce some sort of frame generation. And again, I encourage everyone to, watch this at the very end of me talking about it. I just wanted to give some context to these numbers because you don't really get that in other videos. And I wanted to kind of provide something a little bit different. So yeah, you're looking like 53 to 57. So about a 4 FPS difference here. And then it goes all the way up. I mean, this is pretty big, 7 FPS difference, especially considering, it's harder to go faster. All right, so I'm just going to keep moving here and get on through this one. Again, I'm just scrubbing through it. You can kind of see 85 is pretty good, 64 on the very low end with no overclock on the 5070 Ti. Now, this one was a little bit surprising to me. This is a little bit older game. You've got some pretty big jumps between your overclocks, of course. But this particular scene over here, not the jungle that's next, but this one coming up where it's kind of like there you go. So right here, you got a pretty big difference. I mean, 99 all the way up to 126 is your, delta across the whole test range here. Now let's, compare A to A and B to B. So A, you've got 99 to 118. That's a pretty big jump. And then 106 to 126. So that's another big jump. So, you're gaining about, uh, you know, the same amount of you're gaining about the same amount of performance on both cards with overclocks on this particular setting. I just kind of noticed this, it jumped up and gave you a lot bigger deltas versus the other scenes in this title. So, just keep that in mind. As you're going through different scenes in a game, it might be a big difference, it might be hardly anything. So let's just get on through this one. So the next one is Wukong, and of course I ran this one with ray tracing set on very high cinematic. But to get any change at all, I needed to go down to performance because anything under this, you're just in like the 30s and 20s. There's not a lot of change in these. And to be honest, that's not what you would play these at. You would typically shoot for something around at least in the range where you could start to frame generate. So that's kind of what I was thinking about here is how you would actually play this game if you were wanting to do ray tracing. So here you got 50 to 52, but again, you're jumping up a little bit bigger on your 5080 overclock. So it does overclock better, but it's up to you if that's worth it or not, because to go from 51 to 53, so you're still under 60, but to go from 60 to 64, you're looking like, keeping it in the playable range with the overclock over here. I mean, if you did this with some frame generation, you would probably be just fine, even though it does drop down into the 50s and sometimes even the 40s. Again, this is an incredibly difficult game to run, especially at 4K with cinematic ray tracing and everything like that. So as we scrub through here, just keep in mind it's harder to go faster. I know I've said that a few times, but go from 46 to 50, not as much power that it requires to go from 55 to 59. So you are dealing with a much more powerful GPU over here with the 5080. All right, so yeah, let's just keep on scrubbing through this. And this was the one here that I noticed the biggest gains on. This game does not implement any ray tracing that I know of. If it does, it's extremely minor. I don't think there's any though, but I did comb through the settings. I didn't see anything, but I did run it on quality just to show that whenever you do any overclocking with in conjunction with any sort of upscaling, you're going to get a much better experience. Now, that goes to say without ray tracing, because ray tracing drags things down tremendously. So I'm really only speaking about if you were to run something with no ray tracing with a quality DLSS upscale or performance, whatever you wanted to do. This is just quality though. And look at the difference. I mean, you're going from 115 to 130, and you're going from 103 to 110. All of this is playable. I just wanted to include this title because it is a pretty good indicator of the difference you can get with an overclock. And my overclock settings, of course, are down in the description below. And if you wanted to check that out, you could certainly do that. But yeah, we're looking like pretty good performance uptick here with the 5080 on the overclock. You do get more on your 5070 Ti overclock on this particular game, but you get a lot more whenever it comes to the 5080 overclock. So Yeah, I'm just going to scrub through the rest of this and kind of like let you guys take a quick look at it here. But I encourage you to watch the whole thing after I'm done giving my like commentary about it. But yeah, this was a pretty cool little test. Hopefully, someone gets something out of this. It was fun to do it. It was a long time. I know that I made the announcement a while ago that I was going to be doing this, but I did not realize the effort it would take. So thanks to everyone for being so patient. But I mean, here you go. You got a pretty big jump here, 129 to 153. So this game really does well with overclocking. I think you'll see that. It really depends on the game and your settings. But yeah, so if you got something out of this, give me a thumbs up, like the video, interact with it in some way to help it out, and watch as much of it as you can. The watch time is what really benefits the channel the most. So I'm going to drop out and put this whole thing up here after this so you can just watch it yourself and make your own determinations. So thanks again for dropping by, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.
If it weren't for my family, I'd have nothing. Apparently, there are folks using infected livers for medicine.
I got your six. Move on, soldier.
We don't take too kindly to being
runs out, we're all gonna be fucked. PK and civilian alike.
look at these wares.